Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome. Welcome back, everybody.
Beautiful sunflowers.
Sunflowers for fall. We're still in fall right now.
Yes.
A couple of weeks before Thanksgiving. And let's see, we, in our last session, number 71, had been talking about some of the chelas and lay chelas. At the end of our session, we left off with K.H. mentioning that he didn't feel sorry for the lay chelas who had to work with delicate weapons. I guess Sinnett had complained that the lay chelas only had delicate weapons to work with, whereas the accepted chelas obviously had some cities. The lay chelas basically had only what they could develop on their own. And he explained why. He explained, most importantly, that 3 of his probational chelas were now insane because of their tests and trials. And in one case, one decided he could go much faster than was advisable. The other one was Mirza Murad Ali Beg, who we know his story, and he simply wasn't strong enough to redeem his evil actions. So three of them. And the other was Fern, who had embezzled money from an employer, and he is now insane for whatever reason. So he said, I don't feel sorry that you only have weak weapons to work with, because if you wish for more, you can see what the result can very well be.
If it's premature, of course.
If it's premature. So he recommended that he read an article in the Theosophist that HPB had written, but almost certainly had been inspired by KH and possibly Moria. It was called Chelas and Lay Chelas. So we're going to continue with this letter, number 111. And before we do that, though, we're going to read another excerpt about meditation. In our last session, we covered a short segment from the book Letters on Occult Meditation, dictated to Alice Bailey by DK, and we learned some good stuff. So let's learn some more good stuff. And this comes from starting with page 144. All of these books, every single one of the blue books, is online on lucistrust.org. You can access the PDF on every single one of these books. And the good thing about it is that it lets you know where the pages are in the original. So if you got some students who were following in physical books and others online, it's very easy to know what page that is in the physical books.
The PDF pages are not formatted.
Well, yes, because in a
way.
PDF, they're just continuous and they break however they happen to break.
Okay.
But there's a bracketed page number wherever the page changes in the book.
I didn't know that. Every single one is online. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so there's no reason not to read this material. This, again, is talking about meditation, and I'll have Paul begin on page 144. We're also going to find a better explanation of what DK was talking about when he used the word forms, and that will come up here. Because I access these sometimes randomly, I tried to find beforehand what he was talking about, and I couldn't find it, but now I've got the explanation of what he's talking about when he says forms.
You weren't intending to find that explanation, were you?
No.
That's cool. That's cool.
No, but yeah,
it was just there.
They have a tendency of just showing up.
That's so cool. Okay, here we go. Each man who enters upon occult development and who aspires toward the higher has passed the stage of the average man, the man who regards himself from the purely isolated standpoint and who works for what is good for himself.
So if you're an aspirant, the number one thing you have to be working on is to get out of yourself. Stop dwelling in the sense that I am the most important person, because now you have to put all of humanity as what it is that you're striving to help, not yourself.
Isn't that kind of a macro version of how the normal human life cycle works anyway? As an infant and as a toddler, it's all about you, and then you
Exactly.
don't realize that you can be selfless and giving until you're a little older.
And you still benefit.
Of course.
You just aren't selfishly motivated.
And that's even a higher stage when you realize, oh, when I give to others, it is in giving we receive.
Yes.
Prayer of St. Francis. The aspirant is aiming at something different. He seeks to merge himself with his higher self and with all that is entailed when we use that term. That's the definition of yoga. Literally, he just defined yoga. Unite the connection of your everyday self with your true self. And then everything else that it entails, the higher self with the all self, Paramatma. That's
very
cool.
simple.
Mm-hmm. The stages beyond that, in all their intricacies, are the secrets of initiation, and with them we have naught to do.
Not meaning nothing. And so at this point, they're not trying to prepare people for initiation. That's in the distance. Mm-hmm. What they're trying to do is get the person in tune with their higher self, develop the antakarana, develop that channel through which we can access our higher self. The stronger that becomes, the more open that becomes, the better chance we have of becoming a chela, an accepted chela.
And the way to do that is simple but not easy. The simple way is meditate, calm the brain, the monkey mind, as Eckhart Tolle said, calm that down. And then there is a consciousness that you realize you have beyond the brain itself. You practice it through calming the mind, through breathing, through meditating, and that's when that antakarana almost spontaneously activates. Yeah, meditation. Aspiration towards the ego. Now, that's probably referring to the higher self there.
Yes. At this point in time, in theosophy, ego, spelled with a capital E, meant the higher self. So just keep that in mind.
Not the emotional self that we use as a definition of ego. Now, aspiration towards the ego and the bringing in of that higher consciousness with the subsequent development of group consciousness, now that's interesting, very directly concern all who will read these letters.
And remember, he mentioned in a previous excerpt that we read that actually this was mentioned by K.H., that they were now going to be working with groups, not with individuals. Mm-hmm. And apparently that is still the case. The 1920s, 30s, and 40s, and probably today, I'm quite sure it is. They're not just picking individuals, they're moving groups along.
They realize they need to be more efficient, and they need to not focus all their energy on one person who has a high failure possibility.
Yeah, the other method wasn't working. It really wasn't. So this is what they've switched to, and apparently it's still the same method today.
It is the next step ahead for those on the probationary path. Again, probationary is prior to chelaship.
Yes.
It's potential chelaship.
And that's where Sinnett is right now, for example.
It's still weird that he's not a chela.
He's not a chela. He's not an accepted chela. If he were, he would have to take an oath and change his lifestyle drastically.
And yet they're spending so much time with him, even though he's not a chela yet.
Because none of their European, and by that we mean all Europeans and Americans, Australians, anyone of European descent, none of them have succeeded. Not even Olcott at this point is an accepted chela.
Well, HPB would be the only one.
HPB, yes. It's the only one, yeah. But she's half Asian and half...
Russia is actually mostly in Asia, but there's the European part of it.
Right, so she's mixed. She is Eurasian, and that gives her an advantage.
And we've discussed the reasons for that many times before. It is not achieved by simply giving 30 minutes a day to certain set forms of meditation.
Now let's pay real close attention to this.
I'm going to guess that he doesn't mean you have to spend 4 hours in meditation. That's not what he means at all. Let's see what he says.
No, let's see.
Yeah. It involves an hour-by-hour attempt all day long and every day to keep the consciousness as near to the high pitch attained in the morning meditation as possible. So many clues are in that one sentence right there.
All day long, hour by hour. If you're wanting to become a chela, you need to be focused on this all day, every day.
We can't forget it. It's a constant substratum of your life at this point. You don't just do it. It's like you don't go to church on Easter and then never again until next Easter.
Or once a week either.
Or even on Sundays. You do it, it's all day.
No. When we say this involves self-transformation, we're not kidding. You are no longer the same person that you were a couple of years ago. You're completely different.
Yeah, I mean, your consciousness is different. To keep the consciousness to the high pitch you attained in your morning meditation. This implies that a morning meditation is what he's recommending.
And we've mentioned that is the most efficient and most advantageous time. When you first wake up, before you start the rest of your day, for me, it can be 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. But for you, it might be 5 o'clock or even 6 o'clock.
And then he'll go back to sleep usually for a little while.
Sometimes, not always.
It presumes a determination to consider oneself at all times as the ego, as the soul. Like, live throughout your day as if you're a soul occupying this physical body temporarily. Be the soul. I love that he's saying this. And not as the individual personality. It's a huge shift for most people. Later, as the ego becomes more and more in control, it will involve also the ability to look upon oneself as part of a group with no interests and desires, no aims or wishes apart from the good of that group. It necessitates a constant watchfulness every hour of the day to prevent falling back into the lower vibration.
Now, notice he's not talking about following one particular leader of the group and helping them to achieve their ambitions. No, it has to be a group effort. No one person is above all of the others. That's very important. That's how the Mahatmas operate, and that's how the pupils will have to operate if they want to achieve adeptship at some point.
That's interesting. Do you think he's implying that there needs to be an organization, though, apart? This is much later, like 1920s, when, when DK is writing this.
But he's overseeing these groups. So today, unless you have a Mahatma that's directing you and maybe inspiring you, there's nothing to say that you can't find a group of people and maybe even start a meditation group of your own. Find people that you think have potential and just start a meditation group. Meet once a week or once a month or whatever, and see if among those people you see potential. You can be the leader of it, just don't act like you're more important than anybody else.
It entails a constant battle with the lower self that drags down. It is a ceaseless fight to preserve the higher vibration. That's just the normal challenge of living in the physical world, of having a physical body. That's always going to be the case.
Yeah, so the chelas that live with the Mahatmas have obviously a
huge advantage.
Huge advantage. So, yeah, we, and just like HPB, we have to be in the world, but not of the world. And it's tough. There's no two ways about it.
That's why there's such an allure to some people to go away, to be a Sannyasin or a renunciate. That's why there is a particular allure and a magnetism towards that. It's too hard living in society. I'm just going to sell my belongings and go be a monk or go live in a forest ashram. But then you don't get to help the world either. That might be easier, but...
And that's the key. Those people do their part, but it's sort of selfish too, in a way. So it is the people like HPB who are in the world, who put themselves out there and take all of the slings and arrows that would be aimed at the Mahatmas, and those are the ones who provide the greatest help to humanity but they're few and far between.
We're not saying that there is no one who has a dharma of being a monk or a sannyasin. That may be many people's, it is many people's dharma in their lifetime. It is. But most of the people, I don't think it is. Who am I to judge anyone else's dharma, though? Yeah,
I don't know what the percentage is.
Right. And which is the point I am aiming to impress upon you. The aim should be the development of the habit of meditation all the day long and living in the higher consciousness till that consciousness is so stable that the lower mind, desire, and the physical elementals become so atrophied and starved through lack of nourishment that the threefold lower nature becomes simply the means whereby the ego contacts the world for purposes of helping the race.
Yes. So when we read in The Voice of the Silence, for example, kill out desire, kill out all desire,
personal desire,
lower things. As we have mentioned before, it's not like killing it out. It's like starving it to death. Remove all of the things that it thrives on. This would be the pain body that Eckhart Tolle talks about. We actually have elementals that comprise our ego and that require this drama, constant drama all day long. And most people are more than happy to provide drama for those elementals that thrive on it.
And it's nourishment, like he says. I like that word. If you feed it, it grows, right? We hear this a lot now. Well, we've heard this several times. So he's saying, starve it out so the lower nature becomes atrophied. HPB said, kill out desire. And then what did Timey say? Even the more harsh one. He said, it's the ruthless stripping away
of the ego.
And that ego means the lower nature.
Yes.
We hear it from three people that we trust, how the lower nature is not going to be very helpful. It's simply a means by which your soul interfaces with the world to help the race. And isn't that the group? That's the group that we're a part of. It doesn't necessarily need to be a small group, is what he's saying too, but we're part of the human race. That's our group.
Right. When you lift yourself up in consciousness, you lift everybody up. Everybody in the world. You can't help but have an effect on the entire world.
In so doing, he is accomplishing something that is little realized by the average student. He is building a form, a definite thought form that eventually provides a vehicle whereby he steps out of the lower consciousness into the higher, a kind of Mayavi Rupa that acts as his intermediate channel. These forms are usually, though not invariably, of two kinds.
So he's saying, as an object of your meditation, create this form. And he's going to tell us what they are. But it's a temporary form. So it's a thought form, obviously. The first one he mentions, I'll just explain it, because he was overseeing these pupils. So he was saying, the first form you create is of your master, your teacher. And he wasn't necessarily the Mahatma in charge of each of these people. Some of them were actually students from previous lifetimes of Moria or KH. So each one has an ashram, but each of those ashrams is in a larger ashram. So it's all interconnected.
Wait, DK students?
Yes.
Were students of...
Some of them. Like, for example, Alice Bailey was a pupil of KH, but she was on loan to DK for several decades because he had this project in mind. So KH loaned her to DK during the greater part of her lifetime to help with this work.
Oh, wow.
They do that. They loan them out. It's pretty cool the way it works.
KH
yes.
was still communicating with... He didn't just go away after this experiment was over. He was communicating with Alice Bailey at least.
Up until she died, which was December of 1949.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was the first type of form. And for us who don't know who our Mahatma might be that would be looking over us, just pick someone that you admire, that you think of, and it could be I.K. Taimni, it could be any number of people, it could even be one of their chelas. If you like the work of Subarao, he is almost certainly a Mahatma by now.
One of our faithful watchers may be thinking, or more than one, might be wondering if it can be Jesus or the Buddha.
Absolutely. We're going to see something about Jesus in our lesson today. Yes.
That's helpful because that's a prominent, powerful image, more than an image. It's an entity. Well, that's a strange word to use, but it's alive. The
Right.
image of Jesus to many people is alive.
But here's the catch. It's really easy to turn that into an act of devotion and worship, and even trying to entice them to give you favors. You have to get out of that mindset. Stop asking for personal favors. Remember, K.H. told Sinnett, he said, please do not ask me to do specific things for you. He said, I will do of my own accord what I can do for you. And it's painful for me to have to turn you down. So don't be asking for personal favors. Don't think that because you worship them all day long, that that's going to somehow give you extra attention. All that does is create
The opposite energy.
I'm going to guess that what we're learning here is absolutely not worship or devotion, and we'll see what we're actually doing. This is the first of two. So our goal is to live as the soul, and he's giving us like a method to do this. So I'm curious to see what the second Mayavi Rupa is.
So choose a figure, even if it's Jesus, as an ideal. You want to become like that.
It's like setting
you
a
want to be
goal.
exactly like that person.
Yeah.
All right, so here's the second one.
In the second method, the student pictures himself as the ideal man.
And of course, that's man or woman.
Right. Now, that's probably not the image of the teacher, though.
No. So he's talking about two different forms. One is your teacher that you want to become. Now you envision yourself as the perfect individual that would become an accepted pupil.
He or she visualizes himself or herself as the exponent of all the virtues, and he attempts in his daily life to make himself what he visualizes himself to be. This is so good. This method is employed by the more mental types, the intellectuals, and those whose ray, we'll talk about that, is not so colored by love, by devotion, or by harmony. It is not so common as the first. The mental thought form thus built up serves as the Mayavi Rupa, as did the other, and the man passes from these forms into the higher consciousness. As you therefore see, in building these forms, certain steps will have to be taken, and each type will build the form somewhat differently.
So hopefully you're starting to realize that what we're talking about is not devotion-oriented. That will get you nowhere. But instead, it is lifting yourself up by your bootstraps and changing yourself and becoming the ideal pupil for that individual that you admire so much.
This is so good. We've talked about this so many times in our sessions and together in all of our teachings, that it's so important to visualize an outcome, visualize what we want to create or manifest. And we also talk about how there's a huge misconception in the world about how manifestation is done. It's not just wishing or creating a vision board. And he says it right here. I love this. See yourself as the exponent of all the virtues. And then what does he say? Attempt to do that in your daily life, to make yourself what you visualize yourself to be. See it, meditate on it, create the mental thought form, and then when you're doing your life, do that. Like, it makes so much sense. It's practical.
And this is the crux of the problem with teaching the Europeans that KH has encountered. they don't grasp this at all. They're like, just give us the information.
Wait, so what do they? How do they think it works then? But
they think it is all mind-based. That
Okay.
if you have the formula, it automatically happens, and it doesn't. You have to make it happen. KH has emphasized that over and over, and Sinnett still doesn't understand that.
Let's give a real example. So picture ourselves as the ideal man. Okay, what kind of qualities would the ideal man? Someone who's calm, I would think. Someone who doesn't get angry. Someone who is smart and can provide for himself and his family. Maybe have comfort in life to a certain extent, so there's no hardship. Someone who helps others. Someone who's healthy. Someone who has time for work, play, family. What other kinds of qualities? And these are things you can meditate on yourself acting like.
The number one goal, for me at least, is to get rid of any negative emotions. Mm-hmm. Get rid of any hatred or even flare-ups. Get rid of anger. If you still express anger at any time,
mm-hmm. or annoyance,
even the Mahatmas say that is the last one that they even have to work on is becoming annoyed. Equanimity
mm-hmm.
is the goal. Nothing flusters you, nothing gets you even annoyed. So they are as close as possible to that perfect individual. And that's what we're aiming for.
It's so practical.
If you want to do this work.
And then when you're out of your meditation, when you get in the car and drive to work and you get to try to do that, it doesn't seem as fun as getting it, shakti-potted to you from your teacher. But these masters are telling us here to go out and do it. I love that.
No, it's hard work, and it will take you more than one lifetime. So if you're looking for immediate gratification, you're in the wrong business. All right, let's get back to our letter number 111 and see what KH has to say about similar topics. So he had talked about the 3 chelas who were now insane because they were not careful. And let's continue from there. He changes topic now and will be talking about something besides chelaship. So he's talking about here one of the people that they've been watching, and he was a scientist, William Crookes.
So the great Mr. Crookes has taken one step across the threshold for the sake of reading the Society's papers. Well, and wisely done. And really brave of him. Heretofore, he was bold enough to take a similar step and loyal enough to truth to disappoint his colleagues by making his facts public. He saw his invaluable paper buried in the published articles and the whole Royal Society trying to cough him down, metaphorically. Let him know that its cornucopia of karma is not yet emptied, as Robert Hare found out in America.
And this was another scientist in America who had a metaphysical bent, and his colleagues made his life miserable. So he's telling Sinnett, let Mr. Crookes know, because he's in England now and knows Mr. Crookes, let him know that his interest in theosophy is going to get him some negative attention.
Let him know also that Western science still has 3 additional states of matter to discover, but he should not wait for us to condense ourselves up to the standards his Katie did.
As his Katie did. Katie was one of the spirit guides that several different mediums encountered, and supposedly she could become quite material. I don't know if it was enough that they could actually touch her or what, but she, as a spirit, could make herself quite dense.
Wow.
So they say they're not willing to come quite that far.
For we men are subject to laws of molecular affinity that sweet astral images are not hampered by.
Yeah, they still have physical bodies and they're Mahatmas, so they have very strict rules.
Mm-hmm. We have no favorites and break no rules. If Mr. Crookes wants to penetrate the secrets beyond the corridors the tools of modern science have already excavated, let him try. He tried and invented the radiometer, tried again, and found radiant matter. He may try again and find the kama rupa of matter, its fifth state, but to find its manas, he would have to pledge himself to a stronger secrecy than he seems inclined to.
In other words, that's stuff for initiation for an accepted chela.
This is so interesting, though. So Mr. Crookes discovered radiation, and is KH implying that that's one of the states of matter that hasn't been...
I don't think so. I think that's separate. But his radiometer is something every student of science knows and has seen. And it's also called a light mill sometimes. It consists of a glass bulb containing 4 veins that are black on one side and silver on the other. When light strikes the veins, the black sides absorb more radiation. So he's talking about radiant energy as in light energy, not radiation.
Oh, okay.
Becoming warmer than the silver sides. The temperature difference causes air molecules to move faster on the black side. The interaction of these moving molecules with the veins creates a pressure difference and causes the veins to spin. The rate of spin is proportional to the intensity of the radiant energy. So he's the one who invented that instrument for detecting and determining the strength of radiant matter light.
Wow. So he says if Crookes tries again, he may find the kama rupa of matter. Kama rupa is what? The emotional, the astral?
I guess. I'm not clear on what he means.
Well, literally, kama rupa means like desire body. So that would be the astral counterpart. I mean, we all have an astral.
Right, but we don't have any instruments, most of us, to detect that.
And maybe that's one of the 3 more states.
So I assume that is one of them. And then he talks about manas, and that, of course, has 2 different levels. So maybe that's the 3 he's talking about.
And since he says kama rupa of matter would be its 5th state, so the 4th would probably be ether or prana or something.
I'm assuming something like that.
And of course, science to this day still. So from 1883 until today, we still haven't.
Yeah, we have clairvoyants who can kind of muddle their way around on the astral plane.
Modern science is talking about other states, though. They're talking about dark energy, dark matter, interdimensional. The quantum study may be the route by which science discovers these things.
Well, he kind of implies, too, that if he wants to go very far, he has to switch over to occult science, not physical science.
But won't it be exoteric at some point, though?
It will, of course, obviously.
Yeah.
Everything that's on the inner side slowly becomes known by the majority of people.
But I guess 150 years later, we're not ready yet.
No, we've got a long way to go. Long way.
Okay. You know our motto and that its practical application has erased the word impossible from the occultist's vocabulary. If he doesn't get tired of trying, he may discover that most noble of all facts, his true self. But he will have to penetrate many layers before he comes to it. To begin with, let him rid himself of the maya that any man living can set up claims upon adepts.
Yeah, so too many of these Europeans think that the Mahatmas are individuals that can just advise them, and that because they're prominent in society in England or wherever they happen to be, that they're going to say, oh yeah, let me interact with the world through this individual who has established himself as an expert. It doesn't work that way.
He may create irresistible attractions and compel their attention, but they will be spiritual, not mental or intellectual.
Yeah, so he has to rise like everyone else to their level and not say, you come down to my level.
And this bit of advice also applies to several British theosophists, and it may be good for them to know it.
Yeah.
Once separated from the common influences of society, nothing draws us to any outsider except his evolving spirituality.
Yeah, so don't think you're going to be the exception.
The supreme energy resides in the buddhi, which is latent when married to Atman alone, active and irresistible when galvanized by the essence of manas, and when none of the dross of the latter commingles with that pure essence to weigh it down by its finite nature. I need to read that again to make sure I understand that. The supreme energy resides in the buddhi, which is latent when married to Atman alone.
So Atma Buddhi is kind of inert. What can it do? Not much.
It's active and irresistible when galvanized by the essence of mind, or manas.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you have to have Atma Buddhi Manas before it can actually do
Okay,
something.
that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
And when none of the dross of the latter, that means the coarse parts, right?
Of the mind.
Of the mind.
Yes.
And when none of the dross of the latter commingles with that pure essence to weigh it down by its finite nature.
Yeah, so
Okay.
get rid of all the lower qualities of mana, the lower mind, operate only in the upper mind, the higher self.
I love how they're saying all the same thing, just in different words.
Yeah, it never changes. All of this information, when it's taught by a real teacher, it never changes. It doesn't matter if it's Buddha or if it's Jesus or if it's KH. It's the same message.
I mean, Patanjali, the whole sutras is all about this too.
Yeah.
Lower manas, or mind, quite simply, is of a lower degree and of the earth, earthly. Thus, your greatest men count only as non-entities in the arena where greatness is measured by the standard of spiritual development.
Yeah, they think they're high and mighty. They're not. They're high and mighty in the outer world, but in the spiritual world, they're only slightly more advanced than anyone else in the outer world.
When the ancient founders of your philosophical schools came east to acquire the lore of our predecessors, they filed no claims except the single one of a sincere and unselfish hunger for the truth. If any now aspire to found new schools of science and philosophy, the same plan will win, if the seekers have in them the elements of success.
Yeah, nothing changes. So if you find a teacher, a guru that you find very exciting, weigh what they teach with all of these, any one of these. This is the truth. And if they're teaching something else, something that appeals more to your ego and is easier, doesn't require too much effort on your part, you're going to be wasting time.
Yes, you are right about the Society for Psychic Research. Its work is of a kind to reflect public opinion by experimentally demonstrating the elementary phases of occult science.
Now, remember, this was a society that was formed in 1881, the Society for Psychical Research. It's going to play a very prominent part in the rest of our story over the next few sessions, or till the end of this series.
Was that spearheaded by the masters too?
No, it was spearheaded by basically spiritualists who were trying to prove to the rest of the world that metaphysics actually exist, that there is more than just the physical world that has phenomena.
Well, it sounds like a worthwhile effort.
It is, and the Mahatmas had great hopes for it. We'll see whether or not that works out.
I can guess what the answer is.
And lots of the theosophists were members of both, including Sinnett. He later joined. He may have joined by this time, but he and many of the theosophists in London became members of the SPR, as it was known.
H.S. Olcott has been trying to convert all of the Indian branches into similar schools of research, but the capacity for sustained independent study for the sake of knowledge is lacking and must be developed.
So that was his idea for a curriculum for theosophical groups, branches, and lodges, was to study phenomena. And as K.H. points out, they didn't have any sustained effort or direction or goal. It was just kind of haphazard.
The success of the SPR will greatly aid in this direction, and we wish it well.
Yeah.
Nice. I also go along with you in your views as to the choice of the new president of the British Theosophical Society. In fact, I concurred, I believe, before the choice was made.
And that was Anna Kingsford, who had taken over as president for the time being of the British Theosophical Society, and it was named sometime around this period the London Lodge. So now that comes into effect because the British Theosophical Society theoretically covered all of Great Britain, but there was only one group that was doing anything. I don't know that there was any other group at this point. So it was called the London Lodge of the British Theosophical Society.
There is no reason why you should not attempt mesmeric cures, not by the help of your locket, but by the power of your own will.
And remember that the Mahatmas had told Olcott to stop doing healing because he had overdone it and depleted his own energy. So I guess Sinnett had asked, is there a reason that I can't try that? And he's saying, no, go ahead. Remember that all three members of the Sinnett family, Sinnett, his wife, and their little son, who is 5 or 6 years old at this point, they all had lockets.
With some hair, right?
Yeah. And so he had a lock of hair, and he's going to talk about that.
Without this latter in energetic function, no locket will do much good. So you have to combine it with your own intention and will.
Let's see.
The hair in itself is but an accumulator of the energy of him who grew it, and can no more cure by itself than stored electricity can turn a wheel until liberated and conducted to the objective point.
So it's not like a power that you can just use directly. There is work that you have to do before anything will happen with that. It does have energy, but it's latent.
Like a battery.
Yeah.
Set your will in motion, and you will at once draw on the person whose head it grew on, between him and his severed tress. To heal diseases, it is desirable, but not required, that the one practicing psychokinesis should be absolutely pure. There are many in Europe and elsewhere who are not, obviously, right?
Yeah.
If the healing is done under the impulse of perfect benevolence, free of any latent selfishness, the philanthropist sets up a current which runs like a fine thrill through the sixth condition of the matter,
Buddhi,
and is felt by him whom you summon to your help, KH, if not at that moment engaged in some work which compels him to repel all extraneous influences. Wow, he's giving us lots of clues.
So this is a process, and the operator has to make an effort and has to be pure enough, or at least be able to direct his energy so finely focused that it makes that current happen. It opens it up so that it can achieve the desired purpose.
The possession of a lock of any adept's hair is, of course, a decided advantage, as a well-tempered sword is to the soldier in battle, but the measure of its actual help to the practitioner of psychokinesis will be related to the degree of willpower he stimulates in himself and the degree of psychic purity of his motive. The talisman and the adept's buddhi are in sympathy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you have to know what you're doing. It can't just be hoping and wishing.
Right.
That doesn't work. It's about as effective to hope and wish as to send thoughts and prayers to someone. That's great that you are hoping something will happen, but it doesn't make it happen.
And the object or the talisman isn't inherently going to actively be doing the work on its own. It's not like an intelligent, active, alive entity that does it. It's just the conduit, basically, a battery.
The proof of anything like that is, does it actually work?
Yeah.
I see people who, when someone is ill, they say, oh, I'll pray for you. And just as often they don't get well or they die. Obviously didn't work, but it was also their karma. So that comes into play. But just appealing to some kind of a thought form, a deity in the air, isn't really very helpful. You really have to know what you're doing. like Olcott did. He learned how to actually do healing. And Sinnett is wanting to learn the same.
I'd like to find some of those actual studies that I've heard about group prayer, testing out group prayer. There have been lots of different situations where people are getting together in groups and sending positive thoughts to sick people, and they've tested it. I'd like to see where those were conducted.
I will assign you the task of doing some research on that and report next time on the results of that.
Okay. Okay. Now that you're at the center of modern Buddhistic studies and in personal relations with some of the clever commentators, from whom may the holy devas deliver us. Oh my gosh, that's funny. Oh, the clever commentators. Okay. I shall draw your attention to a few things which are really as disgraceful to the perceptions of even non-initiates as well as misleading to the general public.
Yes, he's in the stronghold of Asian studies. The top people in Britain who are orientalists academically are right there where Sinnett is, and he's meeting them at this very time. So, as we can see, KH isn't terribly impressed with their knowledge.
The more one reads such speculations as those of Mr. Rice Davids, Mr. Lilly, etc., the less one can bring himself to believe that the inflexible Western mind can ever get at the core of our abstruse doctrines. Yet, hopeless as the case may be, it would appear well worth the trouble of testing the intuition of some of your London members by partially expounding through you one or two mysteries and leaving them to complete the chain themselves. That's cool. Let's take Mr. Rice Davids as our first subject and show that indirectly, as he has done it, yet it is he who strengthened the absurd ideas of Mr. Lilly, who thinks he has proved belief in a personal God in ancient Buddhism.
So these scholars investigating Buddhism are doing everything they can to prove that Buddhism believes in a personal God. It doesn't. But keep going.
They don't think Buddha is God.
No, he is an enlightened individual.
Who started the religion, but it's not God. Yeah. Mr. Rice Davids' Buddhism, in quotes.
His book that he wrote.
Oh, okay. His book, Buddhism, is full of the sparkle of our most important esotericism, but always, it seems, beyond his reach and his powers of intellectual perception.
Yeah, they get an academic grasp of what they think it is, but it doesn't reflect any of the real spiritual truth behind it.
To avoid, quote, absurd metaphysics and its inventions, he creates unnecessary difficulties and falls headlong into inextricable confusion.
He thinks metaphysics is absurd right off the bat. So he thinks of everything as being simply mental. There is nothing beyond mental.
He is like the Cape settlers who lived over diamond mines without suspecting it.
And that's the Cape of South Africa.
Okay.
They lived on areas which later were discovered to be full of diamonds, and they had no idea the value of it. So he's comparing Rice Davids to that. He has no idea the value of what he's trying to explain.
I shall only take the instance of his definition of Avalokiteshvara on pages 202 and 203. There, we find the author saying that which, to any occultist, seems an obvious absurdity.
Yeah, an occultist wouldn't go along with his description of it. So this is a quote from his book, Buddhism, and the author is talking about Avalokiteshvara.
The name Avalokiteshvara, which means the Lord who looks down from on high, is a purely metaphysical invention.
And that's his opinion. They just came up with that idea.
The curious use of the past participle passive avalokita in an active sense is clearly evident from the translations into Tibetan and Chinese.
So he puts himself out as an expert on Buddhism when he's anything but it's his version, a scholar's version of what Buddhism is.
Now, saying that it means the Lord who looks down from on high, or as he kindly explains further on, the spirit of the Buddhas present in the church is to completely reverse the sense.
There is nothing in Buddhism that corresponds to the idea of Christian churches.
Avalokiteshvara literally interpreted means the Lord that is seen. Ishvara implies, moreover, inherent lordliness rather than the noun Lord. Oh, wow, that's a different definition of Ishvara than we've known before.
Right.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Inherent lordliness. No, it's actually the same definition. How we've defined Ishvara before is a faceless or nameless or non-personified divine entity, divine consciousness, divine
principle even.
Principle.
It's not a person, a being.
Right. And what he's saying is the inherent lordliness, like behind the statue of Hanuman or Krishna or Jesus or whatever other god people worship, what's behind that? The inherent lordliness that's been personified with a human or animal face or something. So really it is the same.
He's going to explain Ishvara and Avalokiteshvara in several different concepts.
Okay, very good.
That it gives us more of an overall feel for it. And remember in Sanskrit that when you put two words together, there is a contraction. So like Avalokita ends with a short A, Ishvar begins with a short I, and the joining vowel is E, Avalokiteshvara.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Wow, okay. This is very, very cool. The Lord that is seen. Ishvara implies, moreover, inherent lordliness rather than the noun Lord. In one sense, when it is correctly interpreted, it means the divine self perceived by...
Capital self.
Self. Yeah, the divine self perceived by self.
Yeah. And remember, in our last session, K.H. had quoted a little... Let's find it, actually. He quoted something from Vedanta philosophy, which says, Atmanam Atmana Pasya. To know itself even as a shining light requires no light to make itself perceived. Only, as we pointed out, the higher self can perceive the higher self. Anything lower, it's a mystery. It cannot perceive it. You have to raise yourself up to the level of that higher self to know what that is and to really understand it or absorb it, to be with it.
The divine self perceived by the self.
Yeah.
By self. The Atman, or seventh principle, rid of its Mayavic distinction, which Maya, illusion, distinction from its universal source, which becomes the object of perception for and by the individuality centered in Buddhi, the sixth principle, something that happens only in the highest state of samadhi.
Mm-hmm. So again, none of this can be understood simply in an academic mental state. You have to raise yourself up in meditation to the level where you can comprehend it.
This is a really interesting definition of Ishvara and, of what the absolute means or is.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be in the highest state of samadhi, which is probably near bija samadhi, which means you're not connected to a physical object of meditation. You're now expanded.
Right.
Yeah.
At oneness.
Yes.
It's not me and the object. It is oneness. There is no separation.
Wow. This is amazing. This is applying it to the microcosm. What? Say what? In the other sense, Avalokiteshvara implies the seventh universal principle as the object perceived by the universal buddhi, or mind, or intelligence, which is the synthetic aggregation of all the Dhyan Chohans, as of all other intelligences, whether great or small, that ever were, are, or ever will be. Holy Toledo.
So that's another definition of Ishvara. It's the cosmic mind the combined wisdom and experience of every being, including the very highest beings in the universe, and anyone who has ever existed, anything that has ever existed, or will ever exist. That's Ishvara. So does that sound like a personal God? No. So praying to Ishvara isn't going to get you a new Mercedes.
I mean, I'm with you, but let me play the devil's advocate for a second. All the omni words that are assigned to God, the omnis, I think they would say that that is this.
Yes, but do they care about your personal greedy desires? I don't
think so.
You, as an individual, can make that happen. You can go out and get a job that pays enough money to buy what you want. But praying to Ishvara and say, please, 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 I want a Mercedes.
Come on. That sounds so
People
silly.
do that. Do you know that?
I mean,
People
I'm sure they do.
That.
I'm sure
or
they
they
do.
put a picture on their refrigerator and think if they visualize that enough times that somehow it just manifests.
You know what else we do in real estate?
What? We
bury a statue of St. Joseph in the front yard, and it's supposed to help the house sell.
Well, it apparently worked in one case that involved real estate that I owned. We didn't bury a statue in our property, but the person that wanted to buy it buried one so they could sell their house and buy mine. It apparently worked.
Yeah. And then the question becomes, if the statue wasn't there, would the house have still sold?
So, yeah, maybe it works. Maybe I better back off on that.
Yeah. What's up with this Ishvara as seen from a microcosm and then the macro?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. Maybe it will get a little clearer, maybe not.
Nor is it the, quote, spirit of Buddhas present in the church. Okay, he's quoting the book, right, again?
Yes.
Okay. But the omnipresent, there's an omni word, but the omnipresent universal spirit in the temple of nature. Aha. Mm-hmm. Aha. Okay, let me read that again. But the omnipresent universal spirit in the temple of nature in one case, and the seventh principle, the Atman, in the temple man in the other.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
okay.
One temple is all of nature.
All of nature.
But on a microcosmic level, man is also a temple.
Wow. The omnipresent universal spirit in the temple of nature. Wow. In one case, and the seventh principle, our highest Atma, our highest spirit in temple of man. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, dude. This is amazing. Mr. Rice Davids might have at least remembered the familiar simile made by the Christian adept. Whoa, Kabbalistic Paul.
Who is the who?
What? St. Paul was a Christian adept.
According to KH.
Dope. I'm named after an adept? That's cool. Thanks,
Yes.
Mom.
I don't think there's any Saint Terry, so yeah, you're special.
Wow. The
Kabbalistic Paul, yes.
But is that the same Paul? Is that the same?
Yes, absolutely. Now, I have to admit, I read the writings of Paul in the New Testament, and I'm like, this is not a very enlightened individual. But then you would have to know more about him than what is present in the New Testament. And the Mahatmas obviously do know all of that. They recognize one of their own, and he's saying that he was an adept.
Wow. Paul asked, "Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you?" And thus would have avoided making a mess of the name.
Yeah, so he's saying if Mr. Rice Davids had remembered one of the tenets of his own religion, he would have realized that he was explaining the meaning of Ishvara. In one sense, the temple of man, it dwelleth within you.
So in modern English, that would be, you're not the temple of God, but the Spirit of God does dwell in you.
Where does he say you're not the temple of God?
Know ye not.
Oh, no. What that means is, don't you know that you're the temple of God?
Know ye not? Like, don't you realize that you're the temple of God and that the Spirit of God dwells in you?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's a common Christian teaching.
Of course it is.
Right.
Every Christian knows that quote.
But we're bringing more meaning to it, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why I'm saying, if there were people like K.H. who could explain esoteric Christianity, it would make perfect sense. And it would be exactly the same doctrine that is taught by the Mahatmas.
Although as a grammarian, he detected the use of the past participle passive, yet he shows himself far from an inspired Panini in overlooking the true cause and saving his grammar by raising the hue and cry against metaphysics.
Panini is not the famous Italian painter, but was an ancient Indian grammarian living in the mid-first millennium BCE. So somewhere around the same time possibly that Patanjali lived.
Wow.
But many people place him between the 6th and 4th centuries BCE. He is often considered the father of Sanskrit. So he's just saying this man doesn't rise to the level of Panini.
And yet he quotes Beale's Katina,
which is a book. It was called A Katina of Buddhist Scriptures from the Chinese, and it's by Samuel Beale.
And yet he quotes Beale's Katina as his authority for the invention when, in truth, this work is perhaps the only one in English that gives an approximately correct explanation of the word, at any rate on page 374. Self-manifested. How, it may be asked. Speech, or Vach, was regarded as the Son, the capital S, or the manifestation of the eternal self, and was adored under the name of Avalokiteshvara, the manifested God. This shows as clearly as can be that Avalokiteshvara is both the unmanifested Father and the manifested Son, the latter proceeding from and identical with the other, that is, the Parabrahm, and Jivatman, the universal and the individualized seventh principle, the passive and the active, the latter, the Word.
With a capital W, because in the Bible, and he's trying to correlate their doctrine with what's in the Bible. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So that's what he's referring to.
The word, logos, the verb, which is the active part. That makes sense. Wow. Call it by whatever name, but let these unfortunate, deluded Christians know that the real Christ of every Christian is the Vach, the mystical voice, while the man, Yeshu, was but a mortal, like any of us, an adept more by his inherent purity and ignorance of real evil than by what he had learned with his initiated rabbis and the already, at that time, fast degenerating Egyptian hierophants and priests.
So again, he first of all mentions that Christ is a principle. It's a title. It's something extremely spiritual and indicates a level of achievement, a level of awareness attained. Yeshu, the man, was an adept, just like us, he's saying. So yes, Jesus was an adept, and there we have it, right in K.H.'s own words. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, we've got two. We've got Jesus, who was an adept. We've got the Apostle Paul, who was an adept. So, yeah, they are part of this Mahatma network.
So what is Vach again?
Vach is the Sanskrit equivalent of word, in the beginning was the word. So Vach is the sound that creates everything, the universe, the vibration that creates the entire universe.
I wonder if he correlates that to Om, to the mantra Om. That's how Om is described in many senses. The
It
vibration.
could be. He doesn't do that here,
Doesn't do that
but
here,
it could very well
Wow.
be.
The man, Yeshu, was but a mortal like any of us. It's funny how he says, but a mortal. Like, I mean, I don't consider KH and Moria just mortals. I mean, they are human, I know that. But
They have a physical body, and they operate entirely in their higher self. That's the epitome of a human.
Yeshu was a mortal like any of us, an adept, more by his inherent purity.
Well, what he's saying is he didn't become an adept by studying with rabbis.
Yeah.
They weren't adepts themselves,
Right,
so he wasn't going to get that from them. But he developed it on his own because of his purity.
Can you imagine what that conversation would be like when all the adepts are hanging out in their inner planes with their Chohan and like, okay, so who wants to go down and create Christianity now? And Yeshu's like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And then Jesus is born and he goes and does it.
Yes.
Can you imagine what that's like?
And who wants to go down and reform Hinduism?
And then
Buddha said, okay,
Siddhartha's
I'll do it.
like-
I guess I'll take that one.
That is hilarious.
And then they say, and who wants to go try to convert these Britishers into theosophists? Oh, Lord. Here we go. I guess I will go to London and go throughout Europe and get educated and try to learn their ways, but I don't know.
KH is like, I'll do it.
And then there's HPB, and she's like, of course, I'll do
This
it.
is so funny. I'm sorry. Oh my
No,
gosh.
it is. And it's a thankless task for all of them. It is, because they were all persecuted one way or another.
Wow.
I guess maybe Buddha not so much, but
Right.
the others certainly were.
It is only natural that a Christian theologian, a missionary, should act along this line.
He's talking about Rice Davids and Mr. Lilly. Neither one of them was a missionary, but he's just talking in general. Someone, a Christian who is trying to convert people to Christianity. So Mr. Rice Davids especially was trying to prove that Buddhism was more like Christianity in that they had, number one, a personal God, and that it could be called a church.
It is only natural that a Christian theologian, a missionary, should act along this line, since, as easily perceived even in the little I gave out just now, a too correct rendering of our term Avalokiteshvara might have very disastrous effects.
Yeah, he's going to point out something about Christianity that they wouldn't want to know.
It would simply amount to showing Christians the true and undeniable origin of the, quote, awful and incomprehensible mysteries of their Trinity, transubstantiation and immaculate conception, as well as the origin of their ideas of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and Mother.
These are all imponderable, unknowable subjects in Christianity. They're all mysteries. And KH is saying Avalokiteshvara is the source of all of these concepts.
Wow. What is transubstantiation?
Transubstantiation is in the host, the sacrament,
Oh,
when the wafer becomes the body of Christ.
okay. And the blood. Okay. It is not so easy to shuffle the cards of Buddhistic chronology as those of Krishna and Christ.
And he spells Krishna, C-H-R-I, Krishna. And he does this on purpose.
Wow.
The reason is because both of them are principles. They're concepts. They're not individual people.
Krishna might even be like the Sanskrit equivalent of the word Christ, perhaps.
And that's very possible. And there's a reason why he is spelling it that way.
Yeah. They cannot place, no matter how much they would like to, the birth of our Lord Sangyas Buddha in the Christian era. I haven't heard Sangyas Buddha. That's their Lord.
Yeah, it's
Sangyas.
Gautama, but
Oh.
we've seen it before.
in the Christian era, as they have contrived to place that of Krishna.
So the Christians are trying to prove by moving chronology that Christianity preceded Buddhism and Hinduism.
Oh.
So they're saying Buddha was born after Christ and Krishna was also born after Christ. But
Oh my gosh.
KH is not buying it.
Oh my gosh. But why an atheist and a materialist like Mr. Rice Davids should thus avoid the correct rendering of our dogmas, even when he happens to understand them, which doesn't happen every day, is something very curious.
So he's not even a Christian, and yet he's trying to help the Christians out here.
Yeah. In this instance, the blind and guilty Rice Davids leads the blind and innocent Mr. Lilly into the ditch, where the latter, grasping at the proffered straw, rejoices in the idea that Buddhism actually teaches a personal God.
So, yeah, they're trying to bring everything back to Christianity and prove that these other religions are derivations from Christianity.
Wow.
Whatever makes their ego feel better, I guess.
Goodness.
All right, we're at a good stopping point for today. We've got one more session to complete this letter, and then we will pick that up in our next session, number 73. But this is, I believe, the last of the heavy doctrine letters. Mm. So if you're hoping for more, review this many times. There will be more doctrine, and there will be more clues for potential chelas, just like we covered at the beginning of this session. But it's going to change tone now that he's in London. They're dealing with different situations now than they were when the activity and the focus was in India still. So stay tuned. We will keep going with more interesting concepts and history in our next session. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching.